April Fool pranks that went way too far. The sales assistant at a store called her boss and told him that the store was being robbed and she was being threatened. Within a few minutes, police cars and helicopters surrounded the store. When she said it was an April Fool's prank, she was arrested and fired from her job. A lady was arrested after calling her daughter and saying she was shot at her home. The daughter called the police, but when 20 police officers arrived, they realized that no one was there and it was just a bad joke. On a radio station in England, the DJ decided to make a joke saying from the cliffs of Beachy Head, a ship very similar to the Titanic could be seen. Tons of people went to the cliff, causing a lot of traffic. A few days later, due to the traffic, a crack opened up the ground and it fell into the sea. Animals that are bigger than you thought. This is how big horses' lungs are. This is how big a giant leatherback sea turtle is compared to a human. Here's how big a giant African land snail is compared to a hand. Here's how big a blue whale's heart is compared to a human. Here's how big eagle's claws are compared to a hand. And here's how big a saltwater crocodile is. 3 people who beat the system. After this person's landlord said they couldn't paint the walls in their apartment, they decided to get paint strips and cover the walls. This person's teacher won't let them eat in class, so they filled an empty lip balm with cheese so they could sneak it in. This person was only allowed to have a 1-page cheat sheet, so they wrote a whole page of notes in red pen, then another page in blue pen. Then they brought 3D glasses to class, so when they looked through the red side they could see the red pen, and when they looked through the blue side they could see the blue pen. Here's 5 world records you didn't know existed. The most toothpicks in a beard. It took Joel 3 hours and 13 minutes to put 3,500 toothpicks in his beard. The longest hair on a teenager, which is 5 feet and 7 inches. The longest hula hoop spun, which is just over 17 feet in diameter. The tallest hat, which is 15 feet and 9 inches. And finally, the largest table tennis bat, which is over 11 feet tall and 6 feet long. Here's the 3 most dangerous kid toys. In the 1990s, Rollerblade Barbie was released. Each rollerblade used the same wheel mechanism they use in cigarette lighters. So when the Barbie was rolled, it would shoot out sparks. In 1996, the Cabbage Patch Snack Time Kid was released. It ate plastic foods that came with it and exited through a hole in the backpack. But the toy couldn't tell whether it was plastic, your finger, or your hair. And one girl's hair was ripped down to her scalp. Finally, in the 1990s, Nickelodeon released Moon Shoes, which you would strap onto your feet and the springs would help you jump higher. However, they weren't very safe and lots of people sprained and broke their ankles. This is the creepiest McDonald's in the world. In 1986, this McDonald's opened for the World Expo in Canada. Because of its location and cool features, it was placed ahead of the competition. It had real plants, wooden floors, and art covering the walls. Instead of you being able to see the kitchen like in regular McDonald's, the creators hid it. And to get the food to customers, they placed it on a conveyor belt. Millions of people from around the world ate there because it was a must-see tourist attraction. At the end of the expo, it was closed and abandoned for years. Now it looks like this. Bad habits that are actually good for you. Sleeping in. Waking up when your body tells you to wake up rather than your alarm keeps your metabolism up, which means you could eat more food without gaining weight. And people who undersleep are more likely to eat larger portions of junk food. Complaining. Always looking at the bright side of life won't necessarily make you a happier person, but being realistic about the good and bad parts of your life has shown to be better for your mental health. Being messy. People who are messy tend to be more creative, and they found to be 36% more efficient than people who are neat. Dust mites have a hard time living in messy conditions like an unmade bed, so it can also be a good thing for people with allergies. Here's what actually happens during sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is when you feel like you're awake, meaning you could see and hear, but your body's still asleep and unable to move. During this, you may be unable to move or speak for a couple seconds or even a few minutes. Some people also feel pressure on their chest, as if someone was sitting or standing on it. You might even be afraid because of a nightmare that you were having. This usually happens when you're first falling asleep or your body's getting ready to wake up. The dumbest lottery winners. After winning $1.3 million in the California lottery, Dennis Rossi filed for divorce from Thomas Rossi so she wouldn't have to share the money with him. Thomas decided to sue her for violating state law and he kept all the money. Michael Carroll won $14 million when he was just 19. After claiming he wouldn't spend the money on dumb things, he bought multiple luxury cars, mansions, and other expensive things. To this day, he lost all his money and works at a cookie factory. Jack Whitaker won $315 million in the US lottery. When he claimed it, he took it all in cash. However, thieves broke into his house and took millions of dollars. Here's 5 things you didn't know about SpongeBob. There was a replica of the Krusty Krab built in Palestine. The original name for SpongeBob was SpongeBoy Ahoy, but SpongeBoy was copyrighted by a mob company. Tom Kenny, the voice actor for the anchovies, actually inhaled helium from a tank to do the voice. Carolyn Lawrence, the voice actor for Sandy, said she got lots of letters from prison and that was her biggest fan base. Barack Obama said his all-time favorite character is SpongeBob SquarePants because he watched the show with his daughters. Now if you're from America or another country that doesn't have SpongeBob on Netflix, you could click the link in my profile and download the app, then open it and change your location to Canada, and now when you search it up, you could watch it. Here's how fans found Marshmallow's real identity. In this picture on Instagram, you can see a red tattoo through the hole in his jeans. The DJ Chris Comstock also has a red tattoo on his leg. During this interview with Skrillex, someone named Chris phoned him and he said it was Marshmallow.
And, is that right now?
It's Chris.
Oh, Marshmallow.
Finally, the DJ Feed Me posted a picture of him wearing Marshmallow's mask on his Instagram story. And if you look in the mirror, you can see Chris Comstock taking a picture with the rest of the outfit. It was later deleted, but fans noticed this and took screenshots. 1 in a million coincidences. These two trucks lined up and said Taylor Swift. This guy took off the mask and looks more like Mario than Mario does himself. The mountains on the truck lined up perfectly with the mountains in real life. These two ladies were dressed up almost the exact same and they're doing the same thing. This news reporter looks the exact same as the robber that's on the loose. Here's why you should never swallow gum. In 2011, Samantha Jenkins fell into a coma and later died at the age of 19. After her death, her mom found dozens of empty gum packets in her possessions. She felt ridiculous, suggesting that it might have something to do with her death, but she thought it was worth mentioning. The doctor later said the cause of death was because of a lack of minerals in her body, which was caused by malabsorption because of the chewing gum in her stomach. Here's what movies look like without special effects. The Mandalorian was filmed in a studio with one big screen. Here's how Spider-Man flies in the sky. Here's what Thanos actually looked like before special effects. Most racing scenes aren't actually filmed in the streets, but in a studio. Although Jumanji was filmed in a desert, some scenes had to be filmed in a studio. The actors who play the monkeys in Planet of the Apes actually look pretty funny. And here's what I look like without special effects. Unexplained mysteries caught at schools. In 1961 at Westall High School in Melbourne, several students spotted a UFO that flew at low altitude. It made its way through trees until it took flight again and disappeared. Another unexplained mystery is the strange stench that hit a high school in Rhode Island. The stench, which was apparently from the cafeteria, was so strong that they had to suspend final classes. But to this day, they still have no clue what it was from. The Cokeville miracle occurred at an elementary school, where a former police officer and his wife brought a bomb to the school. They kidnapped the entire school in exchange for a large sum of money. The bomb exploded and the couple died on the spot, but thankfully none of the children were harmed. 3 times The Simpsons predicted the future. In a 2012 episode, Lady Gaga performed for the town hanging in midair. 5 years later, she flew off the Houston Energy Stadium roof in real life to perform for the Super Bowl halftime show. In 2008, they showed Homer trying to vote for Barack Obama in the election, but the machine kept changing his vote. 4 years later, a voting machine in Pennsylvania was removed because it kept changing people's votes from Barack Obama to his rival Mitt Romney. Before I tell you the craziest one about Apple, I found this app that gives you a bunch of new fonts. Just press this button on my profile if you want to get it. Finally, in 1994, a school bully wrote "Beat Up Martin" on his Apple Newton, which was a product before the iPhone was made, but it got translated to "Eat Up Martha." A few years later, when making the iPhone keyboard, they added the autocorrect feature, and said it was inspired by this episode of The Simpsons. Here's things that are bigger than you thought. Here's how big a traffic light is compared to a human. Here's a polar bear's paw compared to a human hand. Traffic signs are actually really big. Here's a regular sized moose compared to vehicles. Here's how big the Titanic is compared to a modern cruise ship. Here's how big a tornado is compared to a wind turbine. And here's how big the blade of a wind turbine is compared to a human. You were today's years old when you found this out. Owls' legs are longer than you thought. When someone tells you to break a leg in an audition, it's because they want you to end up in the cast. When the first episode of a show is called pilot, it's because it's the first time they're on air. The L in the store Staples is a half-open staple. Flames don't have shadows. The blue side of the eraser is meant to clean up smudges made by the pink side. Pictures you're not supposed to see. Here's what an owl looks like without any feathers. This is what tiger skin looks like. Here's a human heart without any blood. This is what the bottom of a fire hydrant looks like. Here's the inside of a turtle's mouth. Here's the inside of a bowling ball. And here's the inside of a dice.